We haven't let anybody in yet. Right.
I'm starting the webinar.
Carol, I think if you're sharing your screen, I think it's showing the share bar at the bottom. So
That's
it's
weird.
kind of like all over the over what you're sharing. There you go.
Gone?
Now it's gone.
All righty, we're going to get started in just a second. We'll give everybody just a minute to get logged in here, and then we'll be off to the races.
Well, thanks for everybody for jumping on today. It looks like there's going to be a lot of people on here. Probably maybe be at capacity. We'll see. A lot of people register for this one.
A lot of capacity. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome again to another episode of GovCon Coffee and Issues. My name is Carol Bernard. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Gavology.com, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Lejeune of RSM Federal. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hey, we're going to get started in just a second on this. We still have some folks getting logged in, but let's go over the housekeeping for this session again. So again, for our video cast, podcast, we do it in a couple of different ways. One of the things that we like to do is actually take live questions at the end. So for those of you guys who are watching this on streaming, if you want to join us live on our live stream, you can jump on to gavology.com/issues and join us there. Come in and at the end of the show, we're going to break and we'll have a little bit of a Q&A where we'll take some questions. For those of you guys who are on live with us, a couple of ways you can ask the questions. Just pop them in that Q&A box and we'll get to them at the end of the session. The other way, if you want to raise your hand, we will come in and unmute your mic for you so that you can ask your question live. And we love to take live questions. So there's a couple of ways you can find us if you're looking for our pre-recorded shows. One way you can do that is on our YouTube page. Just go and look for Gavology and you can find our past episodes that we've done together. Also on Facebook at Gavology USA. So there's the link there. And then also on your favorite podcasting apps, Spotify, Anchor FM. Also, we want to invite you, if you are not a member of our private LinkedIn community at Gavology Nation, that's gavology.com/nation. You just type that into your URL and jump right over to the LinkedIn page and request access, and we'll get you in there. And also want to tell you about Michael's great resources at Federal Access, federal-access.com. They've got a ton of really great resources. They also do some coaching there and have some awesome folks on their team. So that's it for the housekeeping. Let's jump into today's episode here. And Michael, today we're going to be talking about the illusion of the middleman. So I know we've been talking about this a lot, and we hear a lot about this from folks on the internet that jump on there and say, "Hey, just sell something." But do you want to just kind of give a little context and background with, well, what is the middleman strategy here as it relates to government contracting, and what you're seeing as the issues that you're seeing within this when you see things online?
Yeah. I mean, I want to talk about 6 potential issues, but for the folks that aren't familiar with this strategy, the main concept here is to be the middleman between the government and a supplier of something, whether it's a product or a service. And what I see a lot of online is people just saying, well, just go bid on a bunch of random stuff. It really doesn't matter. You could be bidding on janitorial one day, be bidding on plumbing supplies tomorrow, IT services the next day, tree trimming. Like, you could just be bidding on any and everything. And the main strategy is just go bid on it. Because if you just bid on a bunch of stuff, you're going to win it. That's number one, which to me is a lie. And then the next thing is, once you have that contract in hand, it's going to be super easy for you to find somebody else to do the work, which is also a lie. And then the next thing is, you're as you do it, you're going to make a lot of money because you'll probably just double whatever the other person put on there. And then that's going to be your profitability. So you're going to make all this money, usually a lie. And you usually see a lot of things on YouTube and TikTok and a lot of different channels where you'll see like this person made $2.4 million in their first 6 months in the business. And a lot of times when you actually watch the video and they start talking, the person will say something like, well, I won this one contract for $100,000. Well, that's not 2.4 million, right? And then they had to pay somebody to do something and all this stuff. So they might have walked away with $1,000, right? So it's very deceptive. A lot of clickbait on this. And it's one of those things. I think we're at a point in this country and a lot of others where folks are desperate to make extra money. They want some sort of side hustle. And because people are so desperate, other people are coming out of the woodwork to sell you something. And they're selling a course, a master course, usually, some books, some workbooks, and all this other training on how to be the middleman because it's so easy. And all you got to do is bid a little bit, and you are going to be a millionaire in 6 to 12 months. That is what I see a lot of the messaging out in the market on. And a lot of it's deceptive. A lot of it, when you start to dig in and listen to some of these videos, you realize that whatever they put in the title was complete clickbait. This person has either not made the money they said they've made, or the number they've put in there is contracts won, not profit. So it looks really like a cool big number. But then I've also done some checking on people because in a lot of the videos, they will say the name of their company. And I'll go look up the name of the company, and it's all false. Like they may have one government contract. A lot of them have nothing. There was a guy the other day said he had won almost $100 million. I was looking at his, I went and looked at his profile, and he's won $169,000, and I'm like, that's a big cry from $100 million. Right. But the thing that most of the middleman stuff misses is like the legality and the issues and the education you need to actually do this. So, if you want, Carol, I can stop the soapbox. You can give us your 2 cents, and then I can get into the 6 things. But there's 6 things I really want people to take away on this strategy, for the most part. So,
No, that's a great introduction, Michael. And yeah, I've seen this for years. Yeah, I mean, going back past a decade when videos on how to do government contracting first started cropping up on the internet. And I think that this, like you said, I mean, there's a big misconception, and it's not that it's impossible to be a value added reseller. And we can kind of talk about the components of value added and how do you do this in the right way? Because certainly there have been some people that are value added resellers and have succeeded in that.
yeah.
But I think that the misconception is that you have a certification, just go find something to sell, and you're going to be able to make a lot of money by doing this,
Yeah.
But like you said, there's a lot of things that people don't take into account. Some of it's, a lot of it's compliance. We could talk a little bit about compliance and a couple of the rules that make it really challenging for people to actually do it and do it in the right way. The margins, you already talked about that. By the time you get down to it, you're working for the margin at the end of the day, especially on some of these commodity sales. And by the time you account for your time of going back and forth, doing the contract administration, doing all of the things, you may be left with a very little margin.
Yeah.
Competition, right? That's another hard one. And we can share a few stories about, there's a lot of other people that might have come before you that's maybe they are already doing some of this at volume. So now the prices that you get from some of these manufacturers or others are not going to be as good as they might have given your competitors that have come before you and have done this. Territorial challenges, just being so reliant upon another business to make your business work and successful. And then, again, having that value added component is super important. So what might that look like for you? So yeah, so all the things you said, I mean, that's kind of 6 things right there in and of itself too. But Michael, why don't we start with the number one thing that you're seeing kind of that is the biggest issue with this strategy?
Yeah.
And
Well,
let's go from
I'm
there.
going to save the 3 biggest ones for last, because there's 3 that most people are not thinking of. So we'll kind of ease into it a little bit.
All right.
The first one is the bidding on random RFPs, where you're literally being advised in the market to just get online and just bid on something, bid on anything. And when you are doing that and you're just bidding on stuff that's on SAM, if you've been in the market, you understand if it's on SAM and that's the first time you heard about it, you've already lost. Like 9 times out of 10, you've lost, unless you can just come up with a ridiculous price. And even then, if it requires past performance or other requirements you're not aware of, you're still not going to win. So just bidding on random RFPs is not a strategy to win. And that is one of the main strategies that I see all the time. Just go bid on stuff. That's literally the phrase I hear in these videos. Just go bid on stuff. So that's number one. The number two is it's kind of in a combination. When you're just bidding on random stuff, there's an uphill battle educating yourself because you're not targeting a niche. So let's say you're bidding on plumbing parts today and you don't know anything about plumbing. You've got to research it. You've got to find vendors. You've got to understand pricing. You've got to understand what the plumbing component is that they have. Is this something you can get easily? Is it a valve or something that you've got to have built? Like there's an education uphill battle. And then tomorrow you're bidding on janitorial and you know nothing about it. So there's another education uphill battle. And then the third day, let's say you're bidding on IT services and you know nothing about that. Because I hear a lot of people that say, I'm uneducated. I don't have a lot of skills. That's why I want to do this. Well, you're going to have to educate yourself. So the second one, the uphill battle to educate yourself, it's a never ending battle when you're not niching yourself. You're just constantly do it. The third one is one you talked about a little bit there, kind of in depth, is the vendor relationships. The strategy online says go win the contract. And once it's in hand, you're going to be able to just call up 3 or 4 local vendors, find the cheapest one, hire them, and they're going to do the job. And they're just going to do it because you have the contract in hand. You have the money. I don't know about you, but I've talked to a lot of people in the construction space and in a lot of other spaces. It's hard to even get a call back when you're asking them to come bid on a job, much less, hey, I've got a contract. Now, like you can't even get a call back from people. So if you don't have good vendor relationships in the area that the work is needing to be done, there's a chance you're now going to have a contract and you can't fulfill it. It's just going to happen. Or that manufacturer, let's say it's a product and you're trying to get $150,000 worth of plumbing parts. And the manufacturer says, well, I've never heard of you. I don't know anything about your business. You don't have a credit score. We can't lend you the money. You're going to have to front us a minimum of half of that or all of it before we're going to deliver. Or you're going to have to do an assignment of claims and have the government pay us, and then we're going to pay you. And we're going to want to negotiate those rates. So if you don't have good vendor relationships, you're hosed. Like that's a really big problem. The fourth one gets into the work share requirements. People don't understand. Yeah, you have that small business status, and that is a status. But if the contract is SDVOSB, if the contract is WSB, if it's 8A, if it's whatever, and that person, that vendor that you're getting to try and do the work doesn't have that, the odds are you're not going to meet work share requirements. And so legally, you're going to have some issues on your hand. And there's different ratios for construction and all that. But on the other side of that, why would that 8A company work for you when they could have bid on the contract, right? And if you're going to them to get pricing, which a lot of the videos say, go to them, get pricing before you submit, red flags are going to pop up. So the work share requirements, one, the legality on those are things. Now, there are contracts that are unrestricted, where it doesn't matter whether they're big, large, whatever, and the work share requirements kind of go out the door. But that's not what the middleman strategy is usually targeting. The fifth one is what I call accountability issues. So when you sign as the prime, you are guaranteeing everything in that contract. And so if there is an issue delivering the product or service, if there is a change in pricing because all of a sudden the manufacturer realized they've got you over a barrel and they decide to increase the pricing, or they say, we're just not going to show up unless you pay us 50% more or whatever it is, that's on you. If your sub is not following requirements, like CMMC, like SCA pricing, you name it. If they're not following the law and there's a Department of Labor review on this, you're accountable. It all falls back on you. And so you may get fined, you may get debarred, you may have God knows what happened to you. You may wind up in jail depending on what happens if one of your subs does something, because you're accountable at the end of the day. And then the sixth big one here that I feel is imperative to all this is the profitability factor. Because if you're doing products, especially, products are already typically low margin. And now you're trying to figure out how to do it. If you don't understand this game, if you don't understand the niche and you're bouncing around, you're not going to understand how to price it. And I don't care what a workbook tells you. The workbooks that are out there don't account for a lot of factors that you need to understand. You really need expert guidance in this stuff, and you need to research all of your competitors and see what the pricing was. You can go down this rabbit hole on profitability all day long, but it takes 10 times the contracts to get even close to the profitability of service contracts most of the time. You can self-perform on a contract doing IT services, janitorial, whatever, and replace your 9 to 5, one contract, 2 contracts. When it comes to products, there's just a lot more risk, which overall, a lot of this is I'm describing as risk. There's so much risk for somebody that is a quote middleman that doesn't understand what they're doing. And they're trying to do this as a hobby or as a side hustle or whatever you want to call it. Government contracting is a full-time gig with compliance and rules and regulations and all this type of stuff. And if you're not in it full time, it's very easy to trip up, make a mistake, and either cost yourself thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, for, again, paying fines, paying shipping fees, paying all kind of things because you don't understand something in an RFP or an RFQ. So those are my 6. But overall, it's all risk based for the most part, in my opinion.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the compliance issues, as you mentioned with the work share strategy, limitations on subcontracting, uh, and then there's another one that's called the non-manufacturer's rule, whereas if you are selling a manufactured product, uh, you could do this. You would call yourself a non-manufacturer. You would get the NAICS codes of the manufacturer, and that might be a legitimate relationship that you've got. One thing that is in that rule when it applies, and some of this applies on small business set-asides only. Sometimes there's thresholds where it applies. So there's a couple of things here, Michael, like what you were saying. It makes it very hard, like if you go from selling a supply to a service to a different thing, because for everything, there's different rules and regs
Right.
that apply to those. If it is a small business set aside or if it isn't, depending upon the threshold. If it's got requirements now for cybersecurity, which is becoming more prevalent in all these contracts. And this is the thing that I think can really hurt a small business big time. If you're really going into there and all you're looking at is the line items on the bid, because they're like, okay, we want Michael, can you still hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. I'm having a little bit of audio issues today, so
We still got you though.
all
It
right.
sounds like it switched mics or something, maybe.
Yeah, so but yeah, that's the essence of it really is just to put yourself at risk and not looking at those requirements for shipping and then making sure that you're getting the required product over to the government that they're asking for, packaged in the right way so they don't reject it. So I think I just came back on my
You just came
microphone.
back. You just came back. You're all good.
Frustrating, but
Yeah, it's all good.
but anyway, nonetheless, there's a lot of these little compliance requirements that go into it beyond the line items.
Yeah.
So if this is something that you are going to do, really the recommendation is get very focused, figure out how you're going to add value, and also when you understand these work share requirements that Michael mentioned, also called limitations on subcontracting, every industry has a different variance on that, on how much work you can do or how much work you can subcontract out. So you really got to also understand that. But in addition to that, for example, if it's a 50% share, you also have to be doing about 50% of that associated work. You just can't take, 51% of the profits and do 10% of the work. So there's a lot that goes into this from the compliance issues as well. I know that back 10 years ago when I worked at the SBA and they were redrafting the non-manufacturing rule, just as an example, they were really trying to cut out the resellers because why are we paying just for somebody that has a certification? And so if you read, if that is something that applies to what you're trying to sell, the non-manufacturer rule, and you go to the regulation and you read that, you'll see that the government wants you to take ownership of that property, either physical or some other way of taking
You need a
ownership.
warehouse. Yeah.
Right. So you got to understand the strategies behind this. You got to understand the compliance. And if this is your strategy, if you are a value added reseller, like I said, there are some viable value added resellers. What I highly encourage you to do is work with a GovCon attorney that specializes in federal contracting and tell them what you're looking to do and what kind of relationship you have with your suppliers. And they will help you craft a strategy that can help to keep you in compliance.
Yeah. And I would say if you are on here today and you are looking for a side hustle, and that's why you've looked at government contracting, I could probably list 100 better side hustles. Probably 100 without even pausing, right? There's so many better options. One of the best ones is just being a content creator. And if you're trying to be a middleman, go into affiliate marketing. You can sign up as an affiliate under Amazon, under some of the biggest brands in the world, and you can start making simple content and make tens of thousands of dollars every single month reselling those products where literally it's just the link. They click the link, they go buy the product, and you get a little commission off of it. Be that type of middleman. It's legitimate. People do it all the time. It doesn't take much to grow that. You don't have to worry about the compliance and all the issues and the risk, because again, the risk is the thing that people don't understand. The risk is what will bite you in the butt and get you fined, get you thrown in jail because you make serious mistakes. Because when you sign an agreement with the government, you are saying that you understand everything in the agreement and you agree to do it. And there's very few of those things that'll send you to jail, but there are some, there still are some, and you're making some promises. And when you start to look at that, what's going to start happening more and more, and it's already starting on the cybersecurity side, is the government is going to start invoking the False Claims Act. That's where they're going to start doing it, because they can bring you in a courtroom and they can lock you up because you've had false claims against the government because you said you were going to perform at least 51% of the work. You said it was all Buy America product. You said it was fill in the blank of whatever it was. And then you get to the point where you can't do it, or you lied because you didn't understand it. You didn't know what an SCA contract was. You didn't know you were supposed to be paying these employees. And let's say you have 40 employees that you're paying 40 hours a week through a sub. They're not delivering it properly. And that SCA rate's an extra $5 an hour per person that you're not covering. You do that contract for a year. There's an audit. Now it's 40 employees times $5 an hour, 40 hours for that whole year. Somebody's on the hook. And if that sub is gone, you're on the hook, right? So there's all these little things that trip it up. But let me throw one more thing in the mix here. People are starting to lean way too heavily on AI. We have not really had widespread AI in the hands of the average person for much more than a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, ChatGPT has really not been mainstream for more than 2 years. So people are starting to use it a whole lot, and it's learning a lot. And there's a lot of different AI platforms. when the AI came out 2-3 years ago, there was a study done that as to the accuracy of the answers it was giving. And the accuracy report that said it was somewhere between like 95 and 98%. It was some really, really high number. And they've done another accuracy report in like the last few months. And that number has dropped to like in the low 70s. So people are leaning on AI, thinking everything it spits out is just 100% fact. So if they're being taught to go use AI to shred an RFP so that they can find out where all the regs are and what they mean and all that stuff, or even, hey, what does, FAR 32 point whatever mean? What does it mean? There's only a 70% chance, low 70% chance that the answer you get is accurate. So if you're not double checking the answer and asking for source data, you could be wrong again. And I do see a lot of that now is people are just saying, well, just go use the AI, shred the RFP. It'll tell you everything you need to do, how to do it, and just trust it. Like, you can't. Like, I mean, I've run questions through it and said, oh, that's not right. I know better than that. Or whether it's acronyms or all kinds of simple things that it should be able to find. So yet again, you get in the risk of following a video that somebody did on YouTube that says, oh, just do these 4 steps in ChatGPT, and that's going to create your RFP, and it's going to be compliant. It's going to follow the law. Well, even if it does, it's not going to explain to you what the limitations on subcontracting are. It's just going to write the RFP, hopefully, to the limits of subcontract or whatever, right? And so there's just, again, inherent risk. And I use the word risk a lot. I must be hanging around co-prints too much. Stephen and I just did a podcast on this topic as well. And so I'm just hanging around too many lawyers, I guess, these days. But there's truth to that. There's just too much risk. So again, if you're looking for a side hustle, you're looking to be the middleman, I would be an Amazon affiliate or Cabela's or Walmart or Target. Like, I would do that hands down before I get into government contracting. It's faster and there's almost no risk. So those are my thoughts, Carol.
Yeah, I do have along those lines, for folks that are interested in actually selling into the government marketplace, really getting the knowledge and really practicing it, because maybe one of these days this is something that you really want to do kind of more full time in your business for yourself. One suggestion I have made to back when I was a PTAC counselor, now called Apex Accelerators, and I would have clients that would come in looking to do something similar to this. I would say, why don't you think about either becoming like a manufacturer's rep? So if you don't know what a manufacturer's rep is, you can actually go and Google that and it'll tell you all about it. But essentially at that point, and actually I had a couple of clients that I worked with that were manufacturers reps, and these were good deals for them. And the way that works, essentially, if you're working with a manufacturer, you're kind of repping their products. So you're helping to find deals. You're putting you could put the quote or the bid together, help them get the deals closed. But then when the deals are closed, they're doing contracts directly with the manufacturer. So the manufacturer now, they have that contract, they have the responsibility, because I mean, at the end of the day, whether you are a rep or you are actually, doing this as a reseller, or the middleman, right? A lot of times you're working for a commission at that point, and what's left at the end, right? So when you can take away that risk, you take away all of the contract management that's involved with it, making sure the shipping gets right, you can kind of defer that risk to the other party. So this would be another way that you could actually get involved with learning about how government contract works.
100%.
Yeah, start to basically get some sales for somebody that you're working with. And by the time that happens and you start developing that relationship, maybe down the road, if there is a side, here goes my microphone again, but if there's a set aside for something that you actually have and there's an opportunity, then now you can actually discuss what those terms look like. You'll have time to have a conversation with a good GovCon attorney and do it right. So
Yeah.
Those are a
100%.
few thoughts and recommendations for you guys as we look at all of this today.
One of the things I also like about on the manufacturer's rep side of things is the support. So when you have questions, when you are digging into this and you're like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Some of them even have training, right? They're going to answer you because that is a support channel for you. But they also have some of the basics taken care of for you. A lot of them will supply an email address, so you don't have to go buy that. They're all going to have a website. They're going to have brochures and marketing material. These are all things that you don't have to think about. You don't have to hire somebody to do. You don't have to spend time agonizing over it. It's there for you. So the manufacturer's rep types of ideas are very, very valid for all the reasons you mentioned. You're really like an outside salesperson is what you really are in that situation. But you're getting to learn it and navigate it on somebody else's dime instead of your own, because you're not making all of those investments. And people always say, well, why would a manufacturer do this? Well, a lot of manufacturers, I've got a really good friend of mine who's a manufacturer in the medical supply base. Um, he doesn't sell direct. He only sells through these reps because none of his team like or know how to sell. They just don't. They know how to make their products. They make a line of medical products. Today, they're probably doing 75 to $80 million a year, all through manufacturing reps that are out in the field that have different territories. And they realized early on they didn't know how to sell. So they recruited people who did. And those people are now selling their products literally all over the world. And so it's a very viable way to do that. And I recommend it. The other strategy that I look at is if you're looking to do something like that, look at the commercial world. The commercial world is so much easier to sell things to. You're not going to have most of these restrictions or regulations or any of that stuff. And you can go out and sell in the commercial world these same products and services because other companies need those things. And it gives you the chance to hone your skills and learn how to run a business. The challenge that I find for most government contractors is actually not the government contracting piece of this. It's understanding the foundation of how to even run their business. They just don't understand sales, marketing, business development, all of the fundamentals, the operations side of things. And if you can learn that in a low risk environment, then you can map that over to government and be very successful. I still personally feel like if I was starting over today, say everything I had went away and I had to start over, I would start in the services business and I would focus on something that I could self-perform the work on so that I didn't have to hire somebody. And I would be working on that contract for whoever it is. And that would be very high margin because I would be keeping all of it other than credit card fees or anything like that. Right. So the service business to me is much more low risk than a product one. Again, if you're trying to manufacture your own products, you've got the cost of manufacturing, the cost of prototyping. So many things go into that. We have a client right now that they've been in prototype with this one product for almost 18 months. And they were like, okay, we're going to market in July. And last month, or actually month before last, they came to me and I said, okay, so we're getting ready to go to market in July with this new product because they were mainly a service-based business. And like, yeah, the latest prototype came back and it's such a dud. Everything is, we can't figure out why everything is broken. And so they're back into manufacturing and trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And they're going to be 2.5 years into development with no revenue. They've had to do this all with money out of their pocket. And part of the problem is they're not a product company. They're a service company. And they're trying to build products because they saw this need, thought they could do it, got a bright idea. And they're now running into the challenges of what it really takes to be a product company. And there's just thousands of dollars of investment in there. So when you go service based, it's usually less risk, less investment. You can get in there and do some of the work, even if it's janitorial. You can get in there and clean bathrooms, vacuum rugs. You can do that kind of stuff and you can pocket that money and gain experience and gain past performance. So If it was me starting over today, I'd be a service-based company. I love service-based companies much more than product stuff. So I don't hear you, Carol.
Yep.
Now I got you.
All right. Sorry, guys. I'm having some audio difficulties today, but Michael, I think you hit all the points there. And if you'd like, we can break and do some Q&A.
Yeah, let's jump in and see what questions people have.
Okay, so before we do that, I want to just thank everybody for joining the show today. For those of you guys who are watching this on demand, if you want to jump on with us in the future onto one of our live
Q&A sessions after the show, just visit us at www.gabology.com/issues and register. So with that, Michael, because I'm having audio issues, I'll have, if you don't mind pulling up the Q&A and reading those out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then also, by the way, guys, if you want to ask a question live, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll come and unmute your microphone.
Yeah, so I think some of these are actually just comments. So we have the first one is just an FYI. I saw this guy selling a 45-page book on Amazon for $250. Middleman style, how to start a government contracting business without doing any of the physical work. Yeah, that's probably yet another scam. So the most that I've seen so far is I actually had someone tell me the other day that they had paid $12,000 for a course that basically showed them how to register in SAM and look for opportunities in SAM. He was quite livid. Next one is great content. How does one position their project management firm in the GovCon realm in supporting the government? So I actually have quite a few clients that are in the project management space. So there's a couple of things. One, if you are needing employees, I highly recommend looking into the Skillbridge program for employees because you can get with transitioning veterans, and usually there's little or no fees for you to have them. They get 6 months of on-the-job training in project management with you, and then you can choose to hire them or not. So the Skillbridge program is actually good for a lot of people to take a look at. But I have friends that do project management in there. So Vets to PM is one of the folks that their Skillbridge host. So there's a little tip there. But I think the best way to position a project management firm is to focus on a niche. You're going to hear that from me all day long, every day. The niches are where it's at. So like I've got a client who is their firm does only project management, but they do it for Department of Energy and they focus on the nuclear energy field. So they have a very defined niche, and some of their project managers are making north of $300 an hour. So the more you can niche within a specific industry, then you will be able to niche within specific agencies. And that's where you really need to position your project management firm. Niche and an agency. And once you've done that, that will really help you hone your message. Carol, do you have any thoughts on that one? I don't know how your mic is going to work for us, but or not work for us. It's not working, so I'll let you work on the mic. I'll answer the next question. So there's somebody who says they work for or work with an Apex Accelerator. So they just wanted us to mention the Apex Accelerator programs. So if you just Google Apex, you can go and look at their website. There is an Apex Accelerator likely in your backyard or within a few hours of where you live. And that is a government funded program to get you help. Now, they're not going to do the work for you, but they can assist you in helping you figure out who's buying what you sell, getting registered in systems. They can point you in the direction that you need to go. And so the Apex Accelerator program is a really good program for a lot of people. There's also the MBDA program. So just Google MBDA and see what programs they have in your backyard for that. But there's a lot of nonprofits that do a lot of really good work. Just be careful about what you learn in quotes here on YouTube, because there's a lot of stuff that's not that's not good. So I didn't see the first half of this person's question, so I'm going to skip this one. So Laura Bennett, if you could give us more context there. I only saw a portion of your question, so I don't fully understand. You're asking something about consulting. People can help other small businesses just starting with. Yeah, I mean, maybe you're making a suggestion. I think consulting is a great business. Obviously, I'm a coach / consultant. I love the business of this, of really just providing advice for people. So that's a great thing for people to do. DeMarcus says this actually sounds better. So thank you. One person says, I must admit this webinar is very doom and gloom. Yes, anonymous attendee, there is a lot of doom and gloom on this. Simply because we want you to not fall into the trap and waste your money. That's just the honesty there. We don't want you to not fall in the trap, because most of the routes to doing the middleman don't uncover the pitfalls for you, and you can wind up in a lot of trouble. It is doom and gloom. It doesn't seem like it. It is. And when you look at a lot of the YouTube videos and TikTok videos and other things that are out there, it's like, you can do it. It's super easy. They don't say, and oh, by the way, you might wind up in jail. They don't say that because it doesn't sell courses. It does, like, you're not going to sell a course telling people all of that kind of stuff. So you've got to be careful about that stuff. So, yeah. So I'm trying to watch the chat and everything else. So I see yours, Carol. Let me know if your mic comes back on. So I see somebody, DeMarcus, we're a digital marketing company. We're a startup and appreciate the webinar because I've been pushing to get into the Fed sector. Well, listen to this. I'm nowhere near ready and need to focus more on the commercial for a long time. Hey, you know, that is a good observation there, DeMarcus. A lot of people focus way too much on trying to get in government before they have, again, an understanding of how to run their business and have anything worthy of past performance and value. So it does make a lot of sense for a lot of companies to grow in the commercial space, even if it's just for 6 to 12 months. And then once you have that experience, you can map that right over into the government fairly quickly. But when you're starting and you're starting focused on the government, it can be an uphill battle. And again, Carol and I are here to tell you the truth and not sugarcoat this stuff. So thanks for the question. Let's see, Tanika, what is a master contractor and what are the prerequisites for becoming one? I see the title, Master Contractors only listed on solicitations. I'm not sure the context there. It might be in a construction type of environment. I'd have to see the context to really know. And then I could answer you. I can't really answer it without like seeing what the RFP is, because a lot of those terms mean very different things. So let's see. Anonymous attendee says, wouldn't it be fairly obvious to a contracting officer that a submitted proposal is from someone trying to be a middleman and therefore not consider that proposal? If some of these entrepreneurs are touting their success with this strategy, it sounds like there are enough contracting officers who are rewarding this strategy on occasion by giving awards to these middlemen. So both of those things are correct. So most contracting officers can spot the middleman if it is actually communicated in the proposal. So sometimes people will actually say something along the lines of, hey, this is who I'm planning to use as my sub. They're going to do all the work. And sometimes they can just tell from it, but a lot of times they can't, because the person that's being the middleman is often not completely transparent, not because they don't realize they need to be, just because they weren't taught they need to be. And so they may present a proposal that looks like it's them, when in actuality, it's somebody else doing the work. And so it slips through. It 100% slips through. And I can tell you horror stories all day long. I get phone calls probably once or twice a week from people that say, Mike, I just won this contract and I'm trying to source it. I can't find anybody who'll supply the products. And everybody wants, $25,000, $50,000 down payment on the product. And I don't know what to do. I've got bad credit, no credit card, no money in my checking account. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I get those kind of calls all the time. And so some contracting officers award it because they see the lowest price and it's an RFQ. So there's not a lot of information. It does happen. But it's the repercussions on the back end that people are not talking about, where they get caught in one of these situations, or they are trying to fulfill the product and they run into just a nightmare of issues and they wind up getting kicked out of the government market because they failed to deliver, and there's a bunch of legal issues. So that happens too. So Carol, are you back on audio now? Do we have
I changed computers if this is better.
Look at you. Awesome, man. We hear you. So I think I'm trying to
All
get
right.
through most of them here, but I think they're typing them in faster than I can answer them. So yeah. So one person talked about, Laura asked about consulting. Yep, I like consulting. John says reality check, though, better to know in advance. Absolutely, John. We want you to have the truth. That is what we want you to have, because you can make better decisions when you know this. So like Carol and I are saying, it's not like you can't resell products. There's just a right way to do it. And most of what you see online, the megaphone online, is you don't have to do any of the work and there's no issues, right? And if
Yeah.
it sounds too good to be true, it likely is. We have to
Yeah.
remember that. So
And part of the reason why, going back to the earlier doom and gloom comment, yes, we've seen a lot of this, and there's definitely some ways that you can get started in the government marketplace at a smaller level. Sometimes that could be subcontracting, but you just got to be smart about it. But it can be crushing if you don't do it the right way to your business. So this is why we wanted to really get on it and talk about something that's been proliferating across the internet with this whole concept of just go find something to sell. And then, I've seen these videos before. Every year, Michael and I see firsthand people going to jail, people paying millions of dollars in back wages because they didn't flow down the right clauses into the, wage rates to their subcontractors, and the list goes
yeah,
on. So this is, the reason why we wanted to come on and talk about this. And, this is called GovCon Coffee and Issues. So that this is
it's an issue.
definitely an issue that if you are new to government contracting and you've seen this kind of purported out there, just be wary, just be careful. There's ways you can get involved with it again, but everybody has to step in the right way. And again, going back to the Apex accelerators that are out there, if you don't know what an Apex accelerator is, definitely go and look them up. They have an association website. The address is aptech-us.org. I'll put the website in the chat there for you guys. And these are great folks that can help you when you start to go in there and say, hey, here's what I want to do. They're also very knowledgeable to tell you what will work and what will not work for you.
Yep, absolutely. Here's a good question from someone that says, can you speak on getting a GSA schedule for janitorial companies? Is it necessary? How does one get one? I'll go in reverse order. So if you need one, you can actually reach out to me. I have people on my team that help people with GSA schedules. But the first step in getting your GSA schedule with our team is actually a research project where we look at your market, what you do, who you're trying to sell to, and see if you need one. 51% of GSA schedules awarded since the beginning of time have never gotten a single contract on them. That's not Mike saying that. If you go look up in GSA's tools, they have an online tool that you can go look up, and it will show you all of the contracts that have ever been awarded in GSA, and it will say how many of them have never won a contract, and it's 51%. So do you need a GSA schedule to sell to the government in any service? Absolutely not. Is it helpful with particular agencies? Absolutely. So the first step is really digging in to find out who buys what you sell and how they buy what you sell to make sure. So you can always reach out to me. My contact information is usually out there. I will put my, I think I can only chat. This is hosts and panelists. It doesn't look like I can chat to everybody. But I think my information's on there, or you can just go to rsmfederal.com. My information's all over there, and you can get my information there. That's one way to do it. So that's the GSA one. Can we speak about selling mental health and holistic services to the government? You know, regardless of what you're selling to the government, the first thing I recommend everybody do is go in USA Spending and run a report on your keywords, not just your NAICS codes, on your keywords. And usaspending.gov is free. It's free to go on there and run the report. Again, keywords and NAICS codes, alternate those things and see, is the government buying it? Who's buying it? Because you may be surprised to see how much of the government is buying this. But then you can also look at your competitors to see, are there 100 competitors selling this? Are there 5? How many are there? How competitive this market is? And then from there, you can start to develop a strategy. But the first step, regardless of what you sell, is a research phase where you determine who's buying your stuff and how you're going to sell to them. And so I highly recommend that. And USA Spending is by far one of the simplest tools you'll ever use for this. Carol, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
That market research is critical, and the beauty is it's out there, and once you learn how to use it, it's beautiful. And again, with regards to the Apex Accelerator centers I mentioned, they do have a service called Bid Match where you could actually sign up and actually get all of these federal, state, and local leads sent to your email. And then you start learning from there as well. You read those solicitations, you'll see what the government's been asking for. You can even go on to sam.gov, which is the main place where government posts, solicitations over 25K in the open market, and you do a year back look to see what they might have posted on SAM in the past year and look at those requirements. So there's a lot of really cool ways, and we've got a lot of education also on Govology that teaches you how to do market research. I've done some classes on this. Michael, your partner, Josh Frank, has done some wonderful classes on Govology called Who Buys What You Sell. So definitely check out the market research because there's some really cool things that you could do. And I tell people that I think that the market research skill set is even more important than the proposal writing skill set, because if you don't do the market research, you might not even make it to the proposal writing pieces because there may be things that prevent you from even qualifying or being eligible. Again, you mentioned it earlier, if you're only seeing it for the first time when it hits the sam.gov platform.
Yep, absolutely. We have somebody asking about CMMC. I would just Google CMMC and you'll see the website on there from the government. You can go learn about it there. We're kind of in an interesting position we've been the last 4 or 5 years with CMMC. It is going to happen. When is it going to happen? I can't tell you. We've been saying next summer for 6 summers. So I can't say that it's definitely going to be next summer. It's looking closer, but there's a lot of changes that are going to happen in CMMC. So I wouldn't be jumping to spend a lot of unnecessary money on it right now. I would be looking to see what are the requirements, and level 1 is what most people are going to need. And so that's what you should be looking at, getting in compliance with level 1. And there's a checklist on the CMMC government website for that. You can go take a look at that and start working on that. Most of it's really, really basic stuff. It doesn't really until you get in level 2 and level 3, which most of you are not going to need, where that's going to be an issue, but there's going to be a need for level 1 for almost everybody out there. So we have somebody saying, Tori here saying,
before you move on to the next one, Mike, I might just piggyback on that one.
You guys have a cohort, right?
We've got actually both a level 1 and a level 2 cohort. If you want to kind of get ramped up, we actually partner with Totem Tech, who's experts at the CMMC front, and you get both the training and then a weekly call to help you implement things as you go. One of the things I would recommend doing is first, when you're doing your market research, determine, do you need and I won't say CMMC because that's kind of like a DoD thing, and there's kind of still trying to really like work out what that certification looks like. But right now, there's already FAR requirements as it relates to cybersecurity. So again, when we were talking earlier, this is one of the things that could catch you off guard, where it's like, if you're not looking at the compliance that's associated with your government contract, because there's a cost of compliance, right? So if you're reading not only the line items, but the entirety of the solicitation, you'll see where they may have provisions or clauses that say, hey, this is going to be required, either before you bid, or if you get the contract, we're going to require that you have this cybersecurity plan in place within maybe 90 days. That may be a cost event for you. So again, if you learn how to do the market research, and one of the things you could do is go to sam.gov, go back a year, see something that might be relevant to what you would bid on if it was on the street today, and just read that, because you're going to learn a lot about what the government requires specifically for your product or service, specifically in your industry. Does it require this whole CMMC or the cybersecurity measures to be implemented within your business? You'll know all of that stuff, and it's going to really help you along the way. Again, so if you're interested in the CMMC cohorts that we're running, learning more about those, just email us at support@govology.com, and we'll get you information. We'll could add you to the list of when that is going to come up again.
Yeah.
But
That'd be a really good way to get up to speed on this.
yeah.
So one of the questions on here, somebody asked about, could we talk more about Skillbridge? They're hearing that for the first time. So Skillbridge is a program that the military has so that people who are exiting have a better transition. That's the whole goal of it. And they can basically wind up as interns in corporations all over the globe. And one of my friends who runs a company, Vets to PM, he has focused traditionally on people that want to learn how to be project managers. They're adding business development for GovCon, and I think they're going to add one other field as well in the near future. And so you can get with a Skillbridge host, and the last 3 to 6 months that you're in the military as you're ETSing, you can work as much as 40 hours a week while the government is still paying your check. Army, Air Force, whoever it is, they're still paying your check, and you can intern for a company to get on the job training and hopefully a job offer at the end of your internship. And so that is the basis of the Skillbridge program. It's a really good program. I have many of my clients use that program to find new talent. They get it very cost effective because there's little or no money out of their pocket. I think the Vets to PM, the way they do it is they ask you to help pay it forward to get the next person certified. So it's like a $1,200 or $1,500 fee to help that other person go through the paid training to become a certified project manager. That's all they ask you to do. It's something like that. And then you've got that person for however much time. So it's really good for small companies that are growing. It really helps the veteran out, gets them something on their resume, possibly a job offer. I mean, it's just a win all the way around. So I really like the Skillbridge program. And just you can Google Skillbridge program, learn more about it, look for a Skillbridge host. If there's a specific one you're looking at, I may know somebody. But again, Vets to PM. So Vets, the number 2 PM, that is a company that is focused on project managers. So that's a good one. Here's an interesting one. I've heard horror stories about state governments not paying contractors. Your book mentions Tennessee's budget surplus versus Illinois. Is there a centralized place to pull current budget info for all 50 states? I don't think there's a centralized place to pull that, but you can Google the state that you're trying to work in, and you can very quickly find their budget info and figure out are they in a budget surplus or a deficit. If you're in a state like Illinois, that's one where literally everybody in town was constantly complaining because Illinois wasn't paying their bills. Now that I'm in a state like Tennessee, we've got a huge budget surplus and they pay their bills and they do it really good, really on time. So that's a really good one. Carol, I know we probably only have time for 1 or 2 more questions. We've got like 10 of them in here. Do you want to pick 1 or 2 and hit those real quick? Now that your mic's working?
Let's see. Oh, there's a lot of great questions here. I tell you what we're going to do, since we're kind of out of time for today, is I'd like to ask you guys to, if you didn't get your question answered, and because there's several questions that are left on the queue here, I'd like to have you guys go to the LinkedIn page that we have, Govology Nation, and you can get there again. I'll put it in the chat here, but the link is just go www.govology.com/nation, request access to get in. We'll get you in there. and you could post your question there. Michael's there, I'm there, and we've got a whole host of other experts that are there that, like, if it's kind of like maybe something on the legal side, I might tag one of our attorneys who's in the
That's
group
perfect.
and see if they can ask that question. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
Michael, let me put this link in there, .com.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll just say thank you as always for being a great co-host and host. I guess I'm the co-host, you're the host, and helping us with these great topics. I'm glad to share the truth, the gospel of GovCon. Maybe that's what we should call it. Is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
gospel of
that's a good one,
GovCon.
man.
Maybe that would be a great book title, the gospel of GovCon, because it really, I think the more information like this that people can find out, the more armed you are to make a decision, change your strategy, whatever it may be, because there are a lot of companies doing really well in government, and all of them, for the most part, are not using this strategy. They're using other strategies. And we'll talk about some of that next month. I think next month we're going to be talking about prepping for Q4 because we're going to be in Q4, right? I think that's our topic for next month. So
yeah, I think it is. And then I think maybe another good topic, which kind of we touched on the conversation is, but like the issue of relying on AI.
Yeah.
I didn't get to jump in. My mic was not,
Yeah.
working, but there's,
I had the AI cut it off. Yeah.
yeah, there's so much misinformation on the internet and old information, and you don't want to use misinformation or old information, which is where a lot of AI is pulling in all of these old blog articles that the rule used to say this, but now it's not that anymore. So this could be a very tricky area for government contractors. So maybe we take that
Absolutely.
up in the future.
Absolutely. We'll do it. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
Michael.
Appreciate
Thank
everybody
you so
joining today.
much. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of GovCon Coffee and Issues. Take care.